welcome back to 59 Minutes. My name is Levi Kones. We are discussing the political happenings of the week. I'm here with Wakili Jude Chesire, or Jude Law, and Cornelius Chepsoi, political analyst, strategists. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, picking up from where we were talking about BBI, things to expect. Two outcomes could come from... There are people who believe that the Court of Appeal is it's just a stopgap, a place of pausing on our way to the Supreme Court. That eventually we will go to the Supreme Court, no matter who wins or loses at the Court of Appeal. And given that in mind, because the Supreme Court then would rule and give a final ruling on this product, of course there's only one of two outcomes. Either the train goes on or the engine goes bust. Assuming the engine goes bust and this thing is stopped, because Kenyans keep jumping from one thing to another, would that be the end? Like now I'm asking you guys to just throw a political crystal ball to prophesy kidogo. Would it be the end of our dalliance with the Constitution? Would we get into 2022 mode? Or what do you envision would happen if BBI died?
Let me start. First, we have to appreciate that we already have a constitution in place. So if BBI fails,
there's no vacuum.
We have a constitution.
There
is no crisis. So we'll just continue with what we have. You see, like maybe as a lawyer, I would say that the Court of Appeal basically looks at issues law. There is no prosecution of any issue. They'll just be reviewing the judgment. They are looking at the law purely. So, as Chepsoi had pointed out, maybe a number of issues might pass, and there are issues which maybe they might uphold, and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so here is my thing. First of all, between now and the High Court ruling, all these politicians who are banking on BBI are all they're all on Plan B.
Yeah.
All of them. In fact, even the likes of William Ruto, who may have also had Plan B while BBI was taking a flight, is also going to be a darling of so many people. There are those who will be asking themselves now, if this thing doesn't work, we've got this guy who we need to make up our mind about. Even though William Ruto really never came out to oppose the Constitution directly, he has always made mention of what was more important than BBI. So you do realize that even if he was a fence sitter, in a sense, he didn't care whether it went through or if it stayed. He was better off if it didn't go through, because then Raila would have an easy ride into elections. Now my biggest problem is we're in June. So I've participated in an election, he has participated in an election. Nominations are in March, April. So that leaves you between now and nomination less than a year. We're discussing 10 months. So the campaign mode starts 2 or 3, at least, for new people, they're already on ground. But for sitting MPs, sitting parliamentarians,
April next year.
That's the nomination point. So you start your campaigns earlier than January. You go to
basically
Christmas,
from November.
You go to Christmas knowing I'm fighting it out. So I'm just wondering, even if the Court of Appeal was to uphold any of the decision, and we have to go for a referendum, what's that time? When is that? You fix it. Try and imagine the date between now and
August 8th, 2022.
Yeah. Which date would you fix the referendum? Then how are you going to change all these things to suit election in August? It's not practical. So the decision here is either we are planning to postpone the elections so that we have enough time to implement.
Which is being whispered in some quarters.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Either the parliamentarians are also, beginning to entertain the idea of pushing elections maybe to 2024 to allow BBI to take effect. You have 70 or 80 new constituencies.
70.
You have to demarcate. And legally, BBI cannot do it. You have to allow
It's a role
IEBC.
of the IEBC.
Yeah, you have to allow IEBC to do that. Now, assume, for example, the Court of Appeal upholds the fact that it's not within the auspices of BBI to determine those constituencies. Clearly, you've got another 1 year minimum that you require to demarcate.
So
those
time is of the essence. Speaking of the IBC, and let me ask Wakili this one very directly, kwanza utuambie. This ruling that said that the IBC was not properly constituted seems to suggest to some that IBC have then
Been making the wrong decisions.
they've been operating illegally. So
Does that make?
yeah, does that make everything they have
Every
done,
decision.
including this by-election of Juja, invalidated?
I think
Can
that-
somebody go to court and lay a claim that, you know, if the ruling were to stand and upheld by the, you know, appeal court and then upheld again by the Supreme Court, and be, you know, what would happen? Would it be a legal conundrum?
Maybe in other words, let me also ask another question, even though we are panelists here together. If you are elected, if you are declared a winner by an illegal entity,
Yes. Are you legal?
are you legal?
Are you legal?
By the way, those are issues of the law, and they are very ripe for litigation. However, the spirit of that judgment was they were giving guidance. They didn't give any specific orders. They did not invalidate the decisions, or because of course nobody had raised it as an issue directly on those 8 matters. But it is an issue that can give room for litigation in terms of its validity. But the spirit in that judgment was basically to guide that, of course, for IBC to make progress on any issue, it has to be properly constituted. The quorum at least has to have at least 5 commissioners. Yeah, so not unless somebody goes to court, because it is something that is arguable.
Yeah, because the spirit is different depending on who's in it.
Yeah.
The spirit could be to
To
go and bring it down. So definitely open to
It's open for litigation.
already we have so many by-election problems in this
Yeah,
country.
they're happening.
So that's just been added to the
Yes.
the top of the pile. IBC have gone to court in their own capacity, challenging that, of course.
Yeah.
So we wait to see whether that changes and then other things remain.
But one thing on the issue of the boundaries, I mean, you remember the interim boundaries, the one that was headed by Ligale.
Yes.
That was proper because it went to the public and views were gathered. And if you realize the current constituencies are based on what was formerly divisions. You know, we had location, division, and then district. You'd find most of them are heavily borrowed from the former divisions. And it was a very intensive exercise reviewing those boundaries. So when you look at the time we have between now and the next election, it would,
No time.
it would
But
really
what's our obsession?
be
Let me
very
ask.
impossible. But you know, the buy-in here, particularly in terms of the boundaries, was that they were telling the people, you see, we are bringing more constituencies, so that, and more constituencies means more resources.
Yeah.
But I can also argue it out differently by saying, why don't you retain those same constituencies and increase the revenue? Nothing bars you.
True.
Just
True.
the same way
In
they're
fact,
saying,
35%.
35% now will be the minimum.
Yes.
But you see,
Yet
we have
nothing's-
15%, which we hardly even enjoy. But when you look at I mean, the government can also push in for 40% without necessarily reviewing the
interesting you say
constitution.
that, because there are certain things about that ruling that people are arguing, you know, they did not need BBI to do, like 35%, 15%. Government could take it to 35%, even 50%.
Even
if
50.
they wanted.
Yeah.
Another thing was the issue of the youth and tax holidays. They could do that today. The issue of help and you know, giving some time for gentlemen to, you know, get themselves together.
Maybe
before.
Chepsoi can respond to that because he's
First
I
of
know
all,
he
That
was a
could be done
businessman.
overnight.
First of all, Levi,
Yeah.
you know, I remember the argument we had here about this youth, and I really sympathize with youth in this country. When you give a tax holiday to somebody who's jobless,
Yeah.
he
7 years.
wasn't paying taxes in the first place. What's this tax holiday you're giving him? When I tell you, Levi, I'm going to give you 50% of zero. How does that help you? You don't have income. You don't have a job. You don't have a business. You don't have capital. Where is the tax holiday going to take the youth?
Yeah, but you have a PIN number, which KRA is expecting you to file something.
No.
So now we are giving you a holiday from that.
No, that's
from
what,
that one. From
that's what I'm saying. The youth in this country need to use their head. Number two, you come to a citizen and you tell the citizen, when you get more constituencies, you get more resources. The only resource constituencies bring to you is CDF, which in my view should have been scrapped a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because the job of a legislator in the first place is to legislate. That's why we've got, yes, as he says, devolution. You've got a governor. You don't want this idea of having an MP who's coming to duplicate what the county government ought to do. So you can't plan. And in fact, if you go to certain counties where CDF and the county are trying to do the same things, you'll find it's easy for corruption to take place. Because I can collude with the county, declare that this is partly CDF and partly county. And we could run away with the money when the county has just paid the amount.
But I was asking, what's the obsession with this representation issue? Because
that's
even the guys who were, you know, the pro-Tanga Tanga guys, who voted yes, said they were doing it on behalf of Mwananchi, and what it would gain to Mwananchi.
Maybe that's what I was coming to, maybe before Jude comes in.
Yes.
I was trying to explain to you how a Kenyan voter thinks. It's so easy to lie to a Kenyan voter to the point that, you know, you're left wondering, do we have functioning brains? Because nobody is also saying to the voter, but remember, if I get elected, you'd have to be taxed more to sustain my office. And even when I promise to bring you more money to the new constituency, nobody is telling them, Mwananchi, it's not money that is just dropping from heaven. It's not manna. It's you who's going to get taxed. So it's a zero-sum game. The voter loses.
Jude,
It's like,
you're saying?
I had already said that that if the spirit is about more resources, then more resources can be granted to the existing constituencies as it is, to the existing counties as it is. But basically, the spirit in BBI was to entice the people that, you see now, when we give you more constituencies, the 200 million that was coming to one constituency, we'll have an extra one. So we'll have like 400 million. So you see, what is the point? And yet, it is the same decision. The NGF, or rather Treasury, can create more funds, or the legislators can create more funds for their constituencies. And remember, they are the ones who are participating in the budget process. Yeah. Similarly, even the county assemblies. I've seen situations where county assemblies have created a ward fund, similar to the CDF, so that now the MCA has some funds in which
you can influence a few things.
Yes.
you do realize I supported Punguza Mzigo a lot.
Yeah.
And the formula for Punguza Mzigo was very, very clear. Forget this BBI nonsense.
It was first reduced representation.
Reduced representation. And then they said, just use the ward as a development unit. It ends the need to argue about who should hold what resource. When you go to the county, break down resources to the ward. When you're at national level and national government wants to do anything, break down that resource to the ward level. Period. If you do that, then you don't have to worry about who is implementing. But I just remembered something about what you're asking. What is this obsession about representation? To the sitting MP, the current one, you see, when you sit in parliament, the salary doesn't change because you're representing a smaller unit or a bigger unit. What changes for you is the cost of campaign. So if me and Jude live in one constituency and we're likely to compete, and there's a proposal to split our constituency into two, it means Jude can run in one and I can run in one. But you see, the politician is very clever. He goes to the Mwananchi and makes it sound like it's about him. When it's about him, I mean about them, when it's about him.
At Arudi.
Yeah. I mean, Jude ran in Moiben.
Yeah.
Tiren is the holder of the office. If today Tiren and Jude were to meet and BBI was proposing a split of soy, they would probably agree, no, just split this thing along the river that puts you on one side and puts me on the other. It makes running very easy. So the ridiculousness of Kenyan politics is that we've placed so much emphasis on the idea that if I have my own person, then I'm likely to gain more. But you're talking about a house that is already 400 plus sitting. In fact, if you were to look critically at BBI, they have suggested to move women from National Assembly to the Senate. You know why? They felt like the Senate was this small house of cahoots, of people who could actually go and have tea and agree on a legislation in a Kamukunji and just come to the House and pass. You can't do that in Parliament, in a National Assembly. You have 400 of you. You cannot even try, you know, it used to be
Even
easy.
meeting is a problem.
Is a problem. And it used to be easier in the times of the likes of Moi. You could also huddle all your MPs into
Because
one
the chairman could
Yes, and
discipline you.
it could be very easily. And you remember Moi,
Yeah.
when he had a legislation that he wanted to be passed, he went there and sat himself and observed the voting happening. He was area MP of Baringo.
Central.
Yes, Central. Was it Baringo Central at
Yes,
this time?
it was
Yes. So when he went and sat there, when you go, and you know, you used to, the voting happened in front of the speaker. You had to rise up, go to the booth, and
Bypass
mark.
Moi.
Bypass, and you first have to pledge loyalty on your way to the booth. It was obvious. That's
And
how
cast your
Moi,
vote. Na inasemwa hapo amesema piga yes.
that is how Moi would gain almost 100% of the vote in parliament.
Yeah.
Now here, you're dealing with a crowd. If you were to look at the Hansard and try to determine, I can assure you, more than half of the MPs may not have said anything.
Yeah, but in the event that
No,
BBI,
but when
know,
you say that, I think this system has been introduced because when you see the members of parliament, when they are voting for these issues, it is in the open. Like Kimani Ngunjiri, I vote yes. Of course, we know he's supporting the deputy president. So I think it is the same thing because it's only that maybe President Uhuru might not be
he's actually
sitting there.
maybe watching on TV.
But they've been voting.
But I think
openly.
Chepsoi is saying there's a certain aura with presence. You see,
Okay.
if you vote,
Those who vote
and
no
you're being
now,
watched on TV is a
yeah.
different affair. If I'm seated there,
If the Mzee is seated there himself,
Unastuka.
Okay.
Now let me ask something. If we take BBI completely off the table, because this country is very political.
and I hope it happens.
Yeah, and you hope it happens. Okay. If we take it off completely,
That's his view.
what other political arena will we have? Because the pro Tanga Tanga have been using BBI as a punching bag, which is endears them to their masses that they speak to. Anti Tanga Tanga have been using it also as a stepping stone to say we are bringing this to you people. Remove that, and what do we have going forward to 2022? What will you default
Levy,
back to?
Levy, politics is a game of interests. And people now, in absence of BBI, will align themselves to interests. Or rather, like now, what are you bringing to the table? Central Kenya will say, these are our interests. We are highly a business community. And what is in stake for us? Do we give you a running mate? Do we give you that kind of thing? So those realignment basically will be based on interests, community interests, business interests. Yeah.
This election, the coming election will not cost. I mean, if you're running for president, you better have 50 billion plus. Your war chest has to be very good. If you look at the people on the table, I mean, you've got to ask yourself, who is really going to run? BBI gave some people a lifeline to talk because then they did not have to run for president. They could pretend to want to run for president so they could land at the deputy prime minister's position or something like that.
Shoot for the stars thing.
Yeah, so let's remove the people who can't afford it. Let's just be candid and say it as it is. Remove Kalonzo. If this thing doesn't go through, remove Kalonzo, remove Mudavadi, remove Wetang. Who else? A few others, remove them.
Gideon.
Gideon could probably afford if you put his family and a few others, but is he going to be able to marshal numbers? Remove him too, because it's not going to have, it's not going to be the basis of money.
Who do we leave there?
You're left with only two, William Ruto and Raila. Now, Here
I think
is
people are really psyched for this William Ruto.
no,
Raila
no,
match.
no, no, I'm just making, I'm just making
He
an
has just removed
analysis.
Gideon from the.
I am not assassinating his,
From the list, yeah.
his
Yet
career.
you clearly stated that Gideon Moi has the
Yes, his problem is
And
not
he
the
has
resources.
he has also
he
kicked
has the
Madividi
muscle.
out quickly.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
has
no,
the
no, but
muscle
I'm
and
just
the
saying.
capacity to finance a president
So Jude, here's the
presidential
thing.
election.
It's one thing to be able to have the resource. It's another thing to be able to marshal numbers. And you see, he's been sitting pretty, hoping BBI will take shape. Then, you know, the argument becomes different. But now, the Kenyatta family now will be forced to look, perhaps, I mean, I'm saying the Kenyatta family, because it's the only other family that probably could afford an election. They'll be forced to look at their own interests too. And when you're left with a circumstance where you're staring between the enemy that you always had and turned him brother, and the brother that you had and turned him enemy, you know, you're dealing with two huge devils in between.
Well, this is
But why would you bring in? Why? Sorry, let me just
you
interrupt.
had to ask this question.
Why are you bringing in the name Kenyatta family? Why wouldn't you say like maybe President Kenyatta because he's an incumbent president and you see?
No, no, you see,
Because I've not seen any direct role.
no. You know, Jude.
I have seen there is president.
Yeah.
Of course, Muho Kenyatta is there, but they haven't.
No,
yeah?
Jude, you're trying to be to be more about facts. It's not.
And we're out of time by then, you guys. This
The point here is,
We are-
I mean,
we are-
if you've got the level of wealth some of these families have, you're not just going to let the leadership, the political leadership of the country, run fluid. It's not possible.
So basically,
they've
you're
got
saying
to worry about
definitely it will definitely come back to this whole dynasty hustler
narrative
for real.
Well, not quite, because in my view, I've always argued that William is already a dynasty. It's just going to be two dynasties dealing with one another. Because, and I've always told you, always remember, I said if William Ruto considers Amolo Odinga dynasty, then we must ask, is son Nick dynasty or hustler? If the idea is that his son is dynasty, then that idea of dynasty
I have to ask us to make
flat.
our final submissions.
But generally, previously, there is a political. I don't know whether it is Professor Kasiangani or one analyst indicated that this time the election might more be a narrative. It can be a hustler, dynasty, or
It's
generally a
just something.
narrative.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys as you make your final thoughts. Yeah. As you wind up, what do you think will be the how do you call it, this pendulum swing that brings voters this way or that way for 2022? Let me start with you, Jude.
Let him go first.
Let him go, yeah. And then we will finish. Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, the one thing that is running in every Kenyan's mind as we speak today is poverty. The pressure that Kenyans are undergoing. The lack of resource that is pinching in everybody's pocket. So the first thing to be economic consideration. That is the biggest issue on the mind of a Kenyan. Number two, Kenyans are fed up with hope. Kenyans are fed up with hope because when Uhuru Ruto was elected in 2013, had so much hope on.
Start with Kibaki.
Yeah.
We
Well,
were
at
even-
least,
we
you
were
know,
even voted most hopeful.
yes, but at least in Kibaki's time, it really worked. Almost. Because, you know, Kibaki didn't have all this flair. And Kibaki didn't borrow left, right, and center to build, you know, monuments that in a few years will be of no use, including Mombasa Superhighway, whatever they call it. So the consideration in everybody's mind is, how do I prevent this from happening to me again? If BBI fails, my feeling is hustler versus story will not hold water. For the simple reason, and most people will argue against me, but I'm going to say this, it's going to expose Ngatanga terribly. Because now, you will be left with a situation where the sitting president, Muigai Kenyatta, would have to choose between Raila and William Ruto. And if he chooses to stay with Raila, for example, then most people then, at that point, who may not feel that Uhuru ran this country very well, would take shift.
I hear you.
And if he chooses to support William Ruto, he's probably going to end William Ruto's career, because everybody then will see him as that idea of kumi yangu, kumi yako.
All right. Jude, what do you think?
Situation. Okay, normally pilots say in the unlikely situation that there is turbulence or somewhat, but in the unlikely situation that maybe BBI goes through,
Goes under.
huh?
They actually say in the unlikely event that we land in water.
Yeah,
yeah, maybe the politics might change, but
Yeah.
so far the environment is such that Kenyans want issue-based kind of politics because the economy is not doing well. So they would want to be in a situation where their voting leaders will inspire them in terms of bringing back the economy to where Kibaki had left, because Kibaki did a very good job. Yeah, so the issue of the narrative also
So we're not
is,
even trying to do better than Kibaki now. We're just wanting to get back.
yes,
Survive.
yes, yes,
We just want to survive.
yeah, we just want to basically survive. So if BBI passes through, if it goes through, you'd find the political realignments will be according to the positions that are there, maybe prime minister. So that these leaders will organize themselves according to their tribes, or where their interests are aligned, because there are carrots to be dangled. If it doesn't go that way, I think the issue of the narrative will stay, and I would call it an issue based, because you see now, people currently, I mean, we live in this world. So many people are suffering, and they are saying they are suffering because the leadership maybe is looking at a few people in terms of the leadership is basically taking care of their interests and not that of the mwananchi. Now, and that's why when the ruling was done, it renewed people's hope. And I believe, like now that we have the new Chief Justice, a woman I respect so much, Martha Koome, I'm sure the judiciary is the only place now where people are laying their hope on, or rather, it is the only hope
the
that
last
people
gate.
have. The executive is captured, the parliament is captured. So as the Chief Justice takes over, remember she is from a background where she was in the human rights positions together with the likes of Martha Karua. So I believe the kind of decisions, or rather the kind, if they constitute the Court of Appeal going forward up to the Supreme Court, Kenyans are really hoping that the judiciary are going to give them a direction. Just the same way it has recently happened, because that ruling really brought a lot of inspiration. Like, they are relieved now that at least there's somebody who can listen to their plight, even though they are not the elected representative of the
Right.
people.
One
Thank
last-
you very much. Sneak it in quickly.
Yeah, but have you considered the possibility of other things happening?
Like what?
For instance, a newcomer, and I'm not saying this just because of the fun of it, but you do remember that there's this gentleman from Mukisa Kitui who has tried to publicize himself. You must put in the possibility that Kenyans may decide we're going to do a clean sweep. And it's
How
where
does it fare on that Nini you put here? Pesa?
maybe he's also
On
waiting.
your list of money.
No, maybe.
Faring there. I
The
think.
three of us live in this country.
Yeah, but
I think-
no, I'm just saying. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
and as we close them
Now, from what he's saying, it is unlikely.
Yeah,
It is unlikely.
But
Not
somebody,
only Kenyans.
let me. Somebody might decide to throw their money at him.
Yeah.
But there's the other one also that we don't like to talk about. We talk about in low tones. What if somebody isn't interested in making any change? And I'm not referring
I think
to
we'll end it
anyone
there.
in particular.
I think we get your point. The viewers get your point. Wakili took us back to where we started, right back to all eyes on the judiciary as we go forward. Thank you so much for coming, guys.
Thank you.
I hope I see you again, and we talk about this.
Thank you.
That's 59 minutes for today. Have a good day. Stay tuned for Leah coming up with Losu. God bless you. Good day.